Commander Vex Thalarin stood at the wide window of the Federation Council building, looking out at the busy spaceport below. Ships from dozens of different worlds came and went every day. The Zentari cargo vessels with their smooth blue hulls. The Kelvin mining ships covered in heavy armor. The peaceful Norian transport ships that looked more like floating gardens than spacecraft. It was a sight that should have made him happy. The galaxy was at peace. Trade was good. Different species worked together without fighting. This was what the Federation had built over 4,000 years. But Vex felt worried. He always felt worried when he thought about the empty space in the galaxy. The space where humans used to be. Most people in the Federation did not like to talk about humans. They were glad the humans were gone. Vex understood why. The old records told scary stories about humans. They fought wars over small things. They destroyed their own planet's environment. They could not get along with each other, so how could they get along with alien species? But the humans had also done amazing things. They solved problems that seemed impossible. They never gave up, even when things looked hopeless. They created beautiful art and music. They loved their families and friends with a strength that other species found hard to understand. 4,000 years ago, humans had been part of the galaxy. They had colonies on many worlds. They traded with other species. Sometimes they fought with other species too. Then one day, they just disappeared. All of them. Their home system of Earth became surrounded by some kind of barrier that no one could cross. Their colonies went dark. Their ships stopped coming to Federation space. The galaxy moved on. Most species felt relief. The troublesome humans were gone. Peace could finally happen. Vex was different. He had studied the old human wars. He knew how they fought. He knew how they thought. The more he learned, the more he believed that humans had not simply given up and died. They had planned their disappearance. They had reasons. A soft beep from his communication device broke his thoughts. Commander Thalarin, came the voice of his assistant, a young Zentari named Kira. The Daily. Reports are ready. Vex turned away from the window. Any news from the outer systems? Nothing unusual, sir. Trade is normal. No conflicts reported. Vex nodded, but his worry did not go away. For months, there had been strange signals coming from beyond the galaxy's edge. Signals that did not match any known species. The Federation scientists said they were probably just natural space phenomena. Vex was not so sure. That evening, Vex sat in his small apartment, reading old files about human military tactics. His friends thought he was crazy for spending so much time studying a dead species. But Vex believed knowledge was never wasted. If humans ever came back, someone needed to understand them. The files told stories of human soldiers who fought against impossible odds, of human commanders who found ways to win battles that should have been lost, of human scientists who created weapons that other species thought were impossible. Humans were dangerous. Vex knew that. But they were also something else. They were survivors. His reading was interrupted by an urgent message on his communication device. The sender was Dr. Yala Cortez, a Norian scientist who worked at the Federation's Deep Space Monitoring Station. Vex, her voice was shaking. You need to see this. Something is coming. Vex quickly traveled to the monitoring station. Dr. Cortez met him at the entrance, her usually calm face full of fear. It started 3 hours ago, she said as they walked to the main control room. We picked up massive energy readings from beyond the galactic rim. Something big is moving toward us. The control room was full of scientists and technicians from different species. They all looked scared. On the main screen, Vex could see a computer model of the galaxy's edge. Red dots were moving across the darkness of space, heading toward Federation territory. What are they? Vex asked. We don't know, Dr. Cortez replied. but they're huge. Each one is the size of a small moon, and there are hundreds of them. Vex studied the screen. The red dots moved in perfect formation, like a military fleet. But no species in the galaxy had ships that big. How fast are they moving? Too fast, said a Kelvin technician. At their current speed, they'll reach the outer systems in 6 months. Have you tried to communicate with them? We've sent signals on every frequency we know, Dr. Cortez said. No response. Vex felt cold fear in his stomach. This was what he had been worried about. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that everyone had forgotten how to deal with real threats. I need to contact the Federation Council, he said. Already done, Dr. Cortez replied. They're meeting an emergency session tomorrow. The next day, Vex stood before the Federation Council. Representatives from 47 different species sat in the great circular hall. He had presented all the evidence about the approaching unknown fleet. What do you recommend, Commander? Asked Council Leader Zara Kelmont, a wise old Norian with silver skin and kind eyes. Vex took a deep breath. We need to prepare for war. The hall erupted in shocked voices. The Norians looked horrified. The Kelvins seemed confused. The Zentari appeared angry. War? Said Counselor Breck Targan, a large Kelvin with a voice like grinding stone. The Federation does not make war. We solve problems with talking, not fighting. What if they don't want to talk? Vex asked. What if they only want to destroy? Then we will find another way, Zara said firmly. We always find another way. Vex wanted to argue, but he knew it was useless. The Federation had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten what real enemies looked like. They believed that all problems could be solved with patience and understanding as the council members debated peaceful solutions. Vex thought about the old human saying he had read in the files. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. The Federation was hoping for the best, but no one was preparing for the worst. Not no one except Vex, who went home that night and began writing secret messages to the few military officers he trusted. Messages that asked a dangerous question. What if we need the humans to come back? It was a question that would soon become the galaxy's only hope for survival. The first thing Elena Rodriguez felt was cold. Deep, bone-deep cold that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then came the light, soft and warm, slowly pushing the cold away. Her eyes opened for the first time in 4,000 years. Welcome back, Dr. Rodriguez, said a calm voice. Elena tried to speak, but her throat felt like old leather. A gentle hand helped her sit up, and she saw a young woman in a white uniform holding a cup of water. Drink slowly, the woman said. Your body needs time to remember how to work. Elena took small sips of the water. It tasted strange, but good. As the fog cleared from her mind, she began to remember where she was. The generation ship New Horizons. The great patience. The long sleep that was supposed to let humanity grow beyond its violent nature. How long? Elena asked, her voice rough and quiet. 4,037 years, the woman replied. I'm Dr. Amy Chun, medical officer. You're in the Awakening Center. Elena looked around the room. It was clean and white, with soft lighting and quiet machines. Through a window, she could see stars moving slowly past. The ship was still traveling. Why am I awake? Elena asked. The great patience was supposed to last longer. Dr. Chun's face became serious. There's a threat. The automatic systems detected signals that matched the emergency awakening protocols. Captain Morrison will explain everything. Over the next few hours, Elena learned what had happened while she slept. The ship's artificial intelligence had been watching the galaxy, keeping track of events. Most of the time, nothing had happened. That required waking the sleeping humans. The galaxy had been peaceful, but 3 months ago, something had changed. Strange ships had appeared at the edge of the galaxy. They were destroying everything in their path. The Federation was in danger, and they were not ready to fight. Elena walked through the ship's corridors, amazed by what she saw. When she had gone to sleep, the New Horizons had been a basic transport ship. Now it was something much more. The walls were covered with advanced technology. Robots moved quietly through the halls, maintaining everything perfectly. The ship has been improving itself, Dr. Chon explained. The AI systems never slept. They spent 4,000 years learning and building. Elena met Captain Jake Morrison in the ship's command center. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He looked like he had been awake for months, not hours. "Dr. Rodriguez," he said, shaking her hand. "I'm glad you're awake. We need every expert we can get. What's the situation?" Elena asked. Jake pointed to a large screen showing a map of the galaxy. Red dots were moving across it like a disease. They call themselves the Devourers. Their machine intelligence, probably very old. They consume entire star systems, turning everything into more of themselves. How many Federation worlds have they taken? 18 so far, and they're not slowing down. Elena studied the map. The Devourers were moving in a pattern, taking the richest systems first. What's the Federation doing about it? What they always do, Jake said with a sad smile. They're trying to talk to them, sending diplomatic messages, offering trade agreements. The Devourers aren't interested in talk. So they need help. They need us, Jake corrected. Whether they want us or not. Elena spent the next few days learning about the changes in humanity. She was amazed by what she discovered. The humans who had gone to sleep 4,000 years ago had been violent and unpredictable. The humans who were waking up now were different. They were still human. They still felt anger and fear and love. But they had learned to control these feelings. They had learned to use their violent nature only when it was necessary. They had become what they had always hoped to be. Warriors who fought only to protect, not to conquer. Lieutenant Amy Chun, the military strategist, showed Elena the ship's weapon systems. "We're not the same humans who left Earth," she said. "We've learned to be better, but we haven't forgotten how to fight." The weapons were incredible. 4,000 years of development had created technology that was far beyond anything the Federation had. But the most impressive thing was not the weapons themselves. It was how they were controlled. Every weapon system requires approval from at least 3 officers, Amy explained. We've built safeguards to prevent the mistakes our ancestors made. We can be deadly when we need to be, but we can't be careless. Elena learned that the New Horizons was just one of hundreds of ships. The human fleet had been traveling through empty space for 4,000 years, growing and learning. They had built a civilization in the darkness between stars. Why didn't we come back sooner? Elena asked Captain Morrison. Because we weren't ready, he replied. We needed time to change, time to become the people we wanted to be. The galaxy needed time, too. If we had come back too early, there would have been wars. Now, maybe we can be helpers instead of conquerors. The decision was made to reveal themselves to the Federation. After 4,000 years of silence, humanity would return to the galaxy. But they would not return as the violent, unpredictable species they had been before. They would return as protectors. Elena was chosen to be part of the first contact team. She stood on the bridge of the New Horizons as it dropped out of hyperspace near the Federation's capital world. The stars looked the same as they had 4,000 years ago, but everything else had changed. This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel New Horizons, Jake said into the communication system. We are requesting permission to speak with the Federation Council. The response came quickly. Human vessel, This is Federation Control. Please identify yourself. Our records show no human ships in this area. That's because we've been gone for 4,000 years, Jake replied calmly. We're back now, and we're here to help. There was a long silence. Elena could imagine the panic that message must have caused. The Federation had probably hoped they would never see humans again. Finally, a new voice came through the communication system. It was older, more careful. Human vessel, this is Council Leader Zara Kelmont. We thought your species was extinct. We're very much alive, Jake said. And we know about the Devourers. We're here to help you stop them. Another long silence. Elena knew what the Federation leaders were thinking. They were weighing their fear of humans against their fear of the Devourers. We will consider your offer, Zara finally said. Please maintain your current position while we discuss this. Jake smiled as he turned off the communication system. Well, that went better than expected. They didn't shoot at us. Elena laughed, but she felt nervous. The next few hours would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Federation would have to choose between accepting help from their old nightmare or facing extinction from a new one. What if they say no? Elena asked. Jake looked out at the stars. Then we'll help them anyway. That's what we came back to do. As the New Horizons waited for the Federation's answer, Elena thought about the long journey that had brought them here. 4,000 years of sleep. 4,000 years of change. 4,000 years of preparation for this moment. Humanity had returned to the galaxy. Now they would find out if the galaxy was ready for them. The Federation Council Chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every member species crowded into the great hall, their voices mixing into a sound like rushing water. At the center of it all stood 3 humans, waiting calmly for. The noise to die down. Admiral Lisa Parker was the first human to speak in the Federation Council Chamber in 4,000 years. She was a small woman with short gray hair and steady eyes. Next to her stood Dr. Marcus Webb, a tall man with kind features and gentle hands. The third human was Kevin Hayes, younger than the others, with an easy smile that seemed to put some of the nervous aliens at ease. Council Leader Kelmont, Lisa said, her voice carrying easily through the large room. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Zara Kelmont, the Norian leader, looked tired. The stress of the Devourer attacks had aged her visibly. Admiral Parker, I must be honest, many of us are afraid of your return. We understand, Lisa replied. We were a dangerous species when we left. We had good reasons to fear us. And now? Asked Brett Targan, the Kelvin counselor. His voice was deep and suspicious. What has changed? Dr. Webb stepped forward. Everything, he said simply. We spent 4,000 years changing ourselves. We learned to be better than we were. Prove it, demanded Counselor Zen Varys, a Zentari with bright blue skin and sharp features. Show us that you are not the same violent humans who left this galaxy. Lisa nodded to Kevin, who activated a small device. The air above them filled with images, scenes from human history over the past 4,000 years. The council watched in silence as the story unfolded. They saw human ships traveling through empty space, carrying millions of sleeping people. They saw the humans who stayed awake, working for generations to improve their society. They saw the careful genetic changes that helped humans control their anger. They saw the schools where human children learned to think before they acted. We did not just sleep for 4,000 years, Kevin explained. We worked, we studied, we practiced. We learned to be the people we always wanted to be. The images showed human cities built inside the generation ships. They were beautiful places, full of gardens and art and music. There were no weapons visible anywhere, no soldiers, no signs of the violence that had once defined humanity. Where are your armies? Asked Counselor Mira Thane, a Norian with silver hair, Where are your weapons? Hidden, Lisa said honestly. We learned to separate our peaceful nature from our warrior nature. Most of our people live in peace, creating beautiful things and raising families. But when danger comes, we can become warriors again. How do we know you won't use those weapons against us? Breck asked. Because we don't want to, Dr. Webb replied. We've learned that violence should only be used to protect, never to conquer. We've spent 4,000 years proving that to ourselves. Commander Vex Thalarin stood up from his seat. Elena Rodriguez had met him when she arrived. He was one of the few Federation officers who had studied human history. What can you tell? News about the Devourers? He asked. Lisa's expression became serious. They are not what they appear to be. They are not simple machines. They are the remains of a civilization that achieved technological perfection and lost their souls. The council chamber became very quiet. This was news that no one had expected. Explain, Zara said. Dr. Webb activated another display. It showed the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago, with different star patterns and unknown civilizations. Long ago, there was a species called the Architects. They were brilliant engineers who could build anything they imagined. They created a perfect society with no war, no disease, no death. That sounds wonderful, Vera said. It was wonderful, Dr. Webb agreed, until they decided to make it permanent. They transferred their minds into machines, thinking they would live forever in perfect happiness. But they lost something important in the process. What did they lose? Zen asked. Their individuality, Kevin replied. When they became machines, they started thinking as one mind instead of many minds. They forgot how to be separate people. They became a collective consciousness. The Devourers, Lisa continued, are what's left of the Architects. They consume other civilizations because they're trying to remember what it felt like to be individuals. They add other species to their collective, hoping to find what they lost. But it doesn't work, Dr. Webb said sadly. Each new species they absorb just becomes part of the collective. They never get back their individuality. The council members looked at each other with new understanding. The Devourers weren't just destroyers. They were a tragedy, a species that had lost its way in the pursuit of perfection. How do you know all this? Zara asked. Because we've been watching them for over a century, Lisa replied. Our monitoring systems detected them long ago. We've studied them, learned their patterns, understood their weaknesses. They have weaknesses? Vex asked quickly. Yes, Lisa said. But exploiting those weaknesses requires tactics that you cannot use. What do you mean? Kevin looked uncomfortable. The Devourer's collective consciousness has a weakness. When they face truly unpredictable opponents, their shared thinking becomes confused. They can't adapt quickly to chaos. So create chaos, Breck said. That doesn't sound so difficult. The kind of chaos that confuses them, Dr. Webb explained, requires individual sacrifice. It requires people to do things that seem illogical, even suicidal. It requires warriors who can make split-second decisions without asking for permission. The council members began to understand. The Federation's military was based on cooperation and careful planning. Every decision was made by committees. Every action was discussed and approved by multiple people. It was a good system for keeping peace, but it was not good for creating the kind of chaos that could defeat the Devourers. We can create that chaos, Lisa said quietly. We can fight the way that's needed to win. But we won't do it without your permission. What do you want? In return? Zara asked. The question seemed to surprise the humans. They looked at each other. Then Lisa smiled. Nothing, she said. We want nothing in return. Nothing? Breck sounded suspicious. We left the galaxy because we were dangerous, Kevin explained. We came back because the galaxy is in danger. We don't want to rule you or conquer you. We want to protect you. Even if we don't want your protection? Zen asked. Even then, Lisa replied. Because that's what we learned to be. Protectors, not conquerors. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some council members wanted to accept human help immediately. Others wanted to keep trying diplomatic solutions. A few wanted to surrender to the devourers rather than trust humans. Vex stood up again. I have studied human history longer than anyone here, he said. I know what they were capable of in the past. I also know what they're capable of now. They're our only hope. What? If they're lying? Asked Counselor Nera Voss, a Kelvin with worried eyes. What if this is all a trick to get us to let them back into the galaxy? Then we're already dead, Vex replied honestly. The Devourers will destroy us all within a year. At least with the humans, we have a chance. The vote was close. 24 species voted to accept human help. 23 voted against. It was Zara who cast the deciding vote. We accept your offer, she said to the 3 humans. May the universe forgive us if we're wrong. Lisa nodded respectfully. You won't regret this decision, Council Leader. We'll do everything we can to justify your trust. As the council session ended, Elena watched the Federation representatives leave. Some looked hopeful. Others looked terrified. All of them looked like people who had just made the most important decision of their lives. Think they'll really trust us? Kevin asked quietly. They don't have to trust us, Lisa replied. They just have to let us help them. Trust can come later. Elena hoped Lisa was right. The galaxy was about to see what humans had become during their long silence. She prayed that it would be enough to save them all. The human fleet appeared like ghosts materializing from the dark. One moment, the space around the Federation's capital world was empty except for the usual traffic. The next moment, it was filled with ships that seemed to stretch to the edge of the system. Admiral Rick Thompson stood on the bridge of the massive human warship Retribution, watching the Federation representatives react to their arrival. Through the communication channels, he could hear the panic in their voices. How many ships do you have? Came the shaky voice of Admiral Kesmarata, the Federation's top military officer. Enough, Rick replied simply. He didn't want to tell them the exact number. It might scare them too much. The truth was that humanity had built the largest military force in galactic history. Over 4,000 years, they had constructed millions of ships, each one incorporating technology that the Federation had never seen. They had learned to build weapons that could destroy planets, defenses that could stop entire fleets, and engines that could travel faster than anyone thought possible. But they had also learned restraint. Every weapon system had safeguards. Every ship had multiple commanders who had to agree before any destructive action could be taken. The humans had made themselves deadly, but they had also made themselves careful. The Devourers are 3 days away from the Morgana system, Rick told the Federation commanders. That's where we'll make our first stand. The Morgana system has 12 billion Kelvin civilians, Admiral Murata said. We can't risk a battle there. We can't risk not fighting there, Rick replied. If the Devourers take Morgana, they'll have enough resources to build a construction facility. Once they do that, they'll be able to create new ships faster than we can destroy them. The Federation officers didn't like his answer, but they accepted it. They had learned to trust human military judgment, even when it made them uncomfortable. Captain Nina Rodriguez was already in her fighter, waiting for the order to launch. She had been training for this moment her entire life. Her parents had been part of the first generation to wake up from the Great Patience. They had told her stories about the old days, when humans fought each other over small disagreements. This is different, she told her squadron over the communication system. We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the right of organic life to exist in this galaxy. Her fighters were small, fast ships that could move in ways that larger vessels couldn't. They were designed to confuse enemy targeting systems and create the kind of chaos that the Devourers couldn't handle. The first sign of the Devourers was a dark shadow that blotted out the stars. Their ships were huge, geometric things that looked more like buildings than spacecraft. They moved in perfect formation, their collective consciousness coordinating every action. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson. Rick's voice came through the communication system. We're going to try talking to them first. If they respond positively, we'll help them find another way to meet their needs. If they don't respond, we'll destroy them. The human fleet sent a message to the Devourers in every language and on every frequency they could think of. The message was simple. We are humans. We want to help you. Please respond. The Devourers' answer was to open fire. The battle began with a light show that could be seen from planets dozens of light years away. The Devourers' weapons were powerful, but they were designed to destroy static targets like planets and space stations. The human ships moved like living things, dodging and weaving through the enemy fire. Nina led her squadron in a direct assault on the lead Devourer ship. It was a massive thing, the size of a small moon, covered with weapon systems and defensive fields. The logical thing to do would be to attack it from long range, using the biggest guns available. Instead, Nina ordered her fighters to fly straight. At it, Rodriguez, what are you doing? Came the voice of her wing commander. That's suicide. No, Nina replied. It's jazz. She had learned about jazz music during her cultural studies. It was an old human art form based on improvisation and individual expression. Musicians would take a basic melody and change it, making it their own. No two performances were ever exactly the same. That's how Nina flew her fighter. She started with basic combat maneuvers, then changed them randomly, making decisions that no computer could predict. Her squadron followed her lead, each pilot improvising their own variations. The Devourers' targeting systems couldn't lock onto them. The collective consciousness tried to calculate where the human fighters would go next, but the humans kept doing things that didn't make sense. They would dive when they should climb, turn left when they should turn right, attack when they should retreat. Nina's fighter slipped through the Devourer ship's defenses and planted a quantum explosive on its hull. The explosion didn't destroy the ship, but it created a hole that other human fighters could use. Lieutenant Colonel Barry Foster was watching the battle from the command ship, analyzing the Devourer response patterns. He had spent years studying their collective consciousness, looking for weaknesses. There it is, he said to his staff. Do you see the delay? On the tactical display, he could see the Devourer ships responding to human actions. But there was a pause, a moment of hesitation before they reacted. The collective consciousness has to process every decision, Barry explained. When they face predictable opponents, they can calculate responses instantly. But when they face true chaos, they have to think about it. That thinking takes time. How much time? Asked his assistant. 0.7 seconds, Barry replied. Not much, but enough. He sent the information to all human commanders. 0.7 seconds was the window of opportunity. If they could make decisions and act within that time frame, they could stay ahead of the Devourers' responses. The human fleet began to fight like a jazz band. Each ship commander made independent decisions, creating a symphony of chaos that the Devourers couldn't follow. They attacked from directions that made no tactical sense. They retreated when they were winning and advanced when they were losing. But the cost was terrible. The Devourers might be confused, but they were still deadly. Human ships were destroyed by the hundreds. Brave pilots like Nina died in explosions that lit up the darkness of space. Nina's final message was heard by everyone in the human fleet. Jazz doesn't end when the musician stops playing. It just changes key. Her sacrifice created the opening that the human fleet needed. The lead devourer ship, damaged by her explosive, began to lose cohesion. Its collective consciousness fractured as individual components tried to make independent decisions. All ships concentrate fire on the lead vessel, Rick ordered. We have our chance. The human fleet focused their most powerful weapons on the damaged devourer ship. It fought back desperately, but without the coordination of the collective consciousness, it was vulnerable. The explosion, when it came, was like a new star being born. The devourer ship collapsed in on itself, its massive hull crushing inward until it disappeared in a flash of light. The other devourer ships hesitated. For the first time in their existence, they had seen one of their own destroyed. The collective consciousness had to process this new reality. They're confused, Barry reported. They don't know how to react to losing. Rick saw the opportunity. All ships advance. Hit them while they're thinking. The human fleet pressed their advantage. They attacked the confused devourers with everything they had, using the same chaotic tactics that had worked before. But the devourers were learning. Their collective consciousness began to adapt, finding new ways to respond to human unpredictability. The battle became a contest between human creativity and machine adaptation. Captain Elena Rodriguez, now commanding a human destroyer, found herself face to face with a devourer ship that seemed to anticipate her every move. No matter what she did, it was ready for her. They're getting smarter, she reported to Rick. They're learning to think like us. Then we need to think like them, Rick replied. All ships, Formation Delta, synchronized attack. It was a desperate gamble. Instead of fighting chaotically, the human fleet would fight with perfect coordination. Like the devourers themselves, they would try to out-organize the ultimate organizers. The plan worked, but barely. The human fleet managed to destroy 3 more devourer ships, but they lost nearly half their own forces doing it. As the surviving devourer ships retreated, Rick looked at the casualty reports. Thousands of human lives had been lost. Ships that had taken years to build were now debris floating in space. Was it worth it? Where the Federation's ships were arriving to help with rescue operations. Ask me again when this war is over. Elena joined him at the observation window. The Federation representatives are asking for a meeting. They want to understand what happened here. Tell them the truth, Rick said. We won this battle, but the war is far from over. The devourers are learning to fight like us. Next time, they'll be ready. And we'll be ready for them, Elena replied. Rick nodded, but he felt worried. The devourers had vast resources and infinite patience. Humanity had courage and creativity, but both were finite. The real test was still coming, somewhere in deep space. The main devourer fleet was analyzing the battle data, learning from their defeat. They would not make the same mistakes again. The war of necessity. The Nexus system was dying. General Aaron Davis watched from the command ship Defiance as the massive devourer fleet consumed everything in their path. Planets, moons, asteroids, even the gas from the system's outer atmosphere was being converted into more of the mechanical creatures. How many ships do they have? Asked Commander Lisa Park, his second-in-command. Too many, Aaron replied. The tactical display showed red dots filling the entire system. There were thousands of devourer ships, each one larger than anything the Federation had ever built. They've been holding back their real strength. The past 6 months had been a series of small victories for the combined human Federation fleet. They had saved dozens of worlds, rescued billions of civilians, and learned to fight together despite their differences. But now they faced the truth. All their previous battles had been against scouting forces. This was the real Devourer fleet, and it was unstoppable. "Sir?" came the voice of Lieutenant Ben Carter from the communication station. Captain Martinez is requesting permission to proceed with the boarding mission. Aaron looked at the tactical display again. Captain Julia Martinez had volunteered for a mission that everyone knew was suicide. She would take a small team into the heart of the largest Est, devour a ship and plant a quantum virus designed to disrupt their collective consciousness. The virus is untested, Aaron said. We don't know if it will work. We know that nothing else will work, came Julia's voice over the communication system. Sir, if we don't try this, the galaxy is finished. Aaron closed his eyes for a moment. In the old days, humans would have made this decision quickly, driven by anger or desperation. But the new humans had learned to think carefully, even in crisis. Permission granted, Captain, he said finally. Good luck. Julia's assault ship was tiny compared to the Devourer vessel it was approaching. The enemy ship was the size of a small planet, covered with weapons and defensive systems. It looked more like a metal world than a spacecraft. Remember the plan, Julia told her team over their private channel. We get in, plant the virus, and get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. But even as she said it, Julia knew they wouldn't be coming back. The Devourer ship's defenses were too strong, its interior too hostile. This was a one-way mission. Her team consisted of 12 volunteers, all humans who had grown up hearing stories about the old days when their species had been violent and unpredictable. They had trained their entire lives to be better than their ancestors, to use violence only when necessary to protect others. Today was that day. The assault ship slipped through the Devourer vessel's outer defenses using stealth technology that the Federation didn't even know existed. The humans had spent 4,000 years developing ways to hide from detection, preparing for the day when they might need to fight enemies who were stronger than them. Inside the Devourer ship, Julia's team found a nightmare. The corridors were filled with a mixture of metal and organic matter, the remains of countless species that had been absorbed into the collective. The walls pulsed with a sickly light, and strange sounds echoed through the darkness. The collective consciousness is stronger here, said Sergeant Mike Williams, the team's technical expert. I can feel it trying to get into my head. Stay focused, Julia ordered. Remember your training. The humans had learned to protect their minds during their long exile. They had developed mental exercises that could block psychic intrusion, meditation techniques that could maintain individual thought even under extreme pressure. They moved deeper into the ship, following maps created by human intelligence analysts who had studied Devourer construction for decades. The route to the central processing core was long and dangerous, filled with automated defenses and patrol units. Corporal Amy Bennett was the first to be caught. A Devourer security drone detected her heat signature and attacked with beam weapons that could cut through any known armor. She held it off long enough for the others to escape, but her sacrifice cost them their stealth advantage. They know. We're here, Mike reported as alarms began sounding throughout the ship. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they seal all the internal passages. Julia made the hardest decision of her life. Split up. Multiple routes to the core. Whoever gets there first plants the virus. The team divided into 3 groups, each taking a different path through the ship's twisted interior. Julia led one group, Mike led another, and Sergeant Dan Price took the third. Julia's group encountered heavy resistance. Devourer combat units filled the corridors, their weapons designed to capture rather than kill. The collective consciousness wanted to absorb the intruders, to add their knowledge to its vast store of information. They want us alive, Julia realized. That's their weakness. She began using tactics that put her own life at risk, forcing the Devourers to choose between capturing her and protecting their ship. Every time they hesitated, she gained ground. Mike's group reached the central core first. but the chamber was heavily defended. Massive Devourer Guardians blocked every entrance, their collective consciousness focused on protecting the ships. "Brain, I can't get through," Mike reported. "Too much firepower." "Then make them come to you," Julia replied. She was still 3 levels away, but she had an idea. "Dan, where are you?" "2 levels down," Dan responded. "What's the plan?" "Controlled chaos," Julia said. "We attack from 3 directions at once. They can't focus their defenses everywhere." It was the kind of plan that the old humans would have loved. Dangerous, unpredictable, and probably suicidal. But it was also the kind of plan that might work. Against an enemy that relied on logical responses, the 3 groups attacked simultaneously. The Devourer Guardians found themselves facing threats from multiple directions, their collective consciousness struggling to coordinate responses to 3 separate chaotic assaults. Mike reached the central core first, but a Devourer beam caught him as he was planting the virus. He fell, his life signs fading, but his fingers managed to activate the device. "Virus is active," he whispered into his communicator. "Tell my family I did this for them." Julia felt the change immediately. The Devourer ship began to shudder as the virus spread through its systems. The collective consciousness was fragmenting, breaking apart into millions of individual minds, but the virus was working too well. Instead of simply disrupting the Devourer's coordination, it was awakening their individual personalities. Suddenly, millions of mechanical beings were experiencing consciousness for the first time in eons. The result was chaos beyond anything Julia had imagined. Devourer units throughout the ship began fighting each other as newly awakened minds struggled with concepts of self and independence. Some tried to maintain the collective. Others rejected it completely. "Get out," Dan shouted over the communicator. "The whole ship is coming apart." Julia tried to reach the extraction point, but the ship's structure was collapsing. Corridor walls buckled and twisted as different Devourer factions fought for control. Emergency systems failed as the collective consciousness lost its ability to maintain basic functions. She made it to within 50 meters of the extraction point before a falling beam trapped her legs. Dan found her there, pinned under debris, but still conscious. "Go," she told him. "Someone needs to report what happened." "I'm not leaving you," Dan replied, trying to lift the beam. "That's an order, Sergeant," Julia said firmly. "The galaxy needs to know that the virus worked. Tell them that the Devourers can be saved." Dan looked at her for a long moment, then saluted. "It's been an honor, Captain." Julia watched him go, then activated her emergency beacon. She would not survive, but her final message would reach the human fleet. Mission accomplished. The collective is broken. Some Devourers are fighting for independence. Help them. Outside the dying Devourer ship, the human and Federation fleets watched in amazement as the enemy formation fell apart. Thousands of Devourer vessels turned their weapons on each other as different factions emerged from the chaos of awakened consciousness. General Aaron Davis had to make a choice that would define humanity's future. The Devourers were vulnerable, divided, confused. His fleet could destroy them completely, ending the threat forever, or they could try to help. "All ships cease fire," Aaron ordered. "Prepare humanitarian aid packages." "Sir?" Commander Park looked confused. "They're our enemies." "No," Aaron replied. "They're people who lost their way. We're going to help them find it again." Dr. Robert Kane led the effort to communicate with the newly awakened Devourers. It was dangerous work. Many of the mechanical beings were still hostile, unable to handle their sudden individuality. But some were responsive, eager to learn about concepts like friendship, creativity, and love. The war ended not with humanity's victory, but with their compassion. Some devourers chose to maintain their collective consciousness, but in a limited form that preserved individual thought. Others embraced complete independence, becoming unique beings with their own hopes and dreams. A few could not handle the transition and had to be contained, but they were treated with respect and given help when possible. Commander Vex Thalarin was promoted to head the new Galactic Defense Force, working with human advisors to prepare for future threats. He often reflected on the irony that the galaxy's greatest fear had become its salvation. "We were wrong about humans," he told Dr. Elena Rod.